With the overall complexity of a lot of modern day vehicles, many people use the argument they would never dare own a vehicle outside of warranty, and if they did, they would certainly reach out for that extended warranty. While some brands, you build the confidence and the understanding that they will deliver on miles and miles of unrelenting, reliable transportation, while other ones will certainly leave you in the service shop paying thousands of dollars for every single visit. Many modern day vehicles are just so complex, once a warranty's gone, you want to hand the keys back. Well, there is an extended warranty, but sometimes that costs thousands of dollars just to keep that vehicle on the road for what, another 1 or 2 years? There are in fact some vehicle brands I would have no problems owning, not just outside of warranty, but I would totally skip on the extended warranty program and save thousands of dollars. Let's get into it now. Now, of course, there's always exceptions. People buy used cars, they don't have warranty, or quite often let the warranty dissipate. Well, there's one of a couple of conditions, the caveats. One, of course, you have to have an extraordinarily large bank account for some of these modern vehicles that are loaded up with tech and have durability challenges. And two, you just have an extraordinarily high level of do-it-yourselfer skills, so when some problem arises, you have no issue in wrenching and fixing a lot of the problems yourself. Without those caveats, just know this: if you have to take your modern day vehicle in a service shop to get fixed outside of warranty, the sky's the limit what some of those repairs can actually cost you. So having that extended warranty or peace of mind, once a warranty runs out, you want to make sure that you're driving something that isn't going to break the bank. Well, let's get into the first brand. The first manufacturer that I would certainly own, no problems, no questions asked, and let the warranty run out, because warranty will cost you some money. And just manage any kind of minor inconveniences when they come along, is a brand, Toyota. Toyota, everybody knows and trusts the brand. Of course, they have some of the best ECVT systems. It's not like the Jatco and the Nissan products, but Toyota has some of the best ECVT systems in the market. As well as when you're dealing with some of the hybrid systems by Toyota, they're also some of the most dialed in and most reliable systems. Not to mention that with the exception of that latest generation V35A, of course, that 3.4 liter twin turbo V6 you're finding in the Tundra, as well as the Lexus LX 600, that's a rare exception, because most Toyotas are absolutely bulletproof. Especially in the last 10 to 15 years, most Toyotas simply just run and run and run. Hybrid, CVT, naturally aspirated. Late models now have turbos, and that new 2.4 is actually quite reliable as well. But owning a RAV4, a Highlander, a Camry, a Corolla, they're all magnificent vehicles. None of them are ever likely going to leave you in a lurch. And if they do, it's a relatively mild failure. As long as you have, in one exception, I suggest you tighten up the oil services. A lot of times, Toyotas are allowing in certain markets as many as 10,000 miles. Reduce that down to 3,000 to 5,000 miles, and that vehicle will literally run just about forever, or as long as you care for it to run. Doesn't matter, cars, SUVs, Toyota builds one of the most reliable brands, and I would have no issue in owning one of these outside of warranty. Skip the extended warranty. The next brand would be Acura. And the MDX, there have been a few issues. The latest recalls talked to a 3.5 liter V6 that have had some issues with rod bearings and potential catastrophic failures, but that's few and far between and a small batch. The relative reliability of these cars is virtually unmatched in Acura products. Now, whether you're going for a naturally aspirated 3.5 liter V6, or you're going for one of the hot rod 2 liter turbos in some of their smaller vehicles like the RDX, the point is Acura makes a very reliable product, as it's essentially an upscale Honda. Hondas make cars that definitely we can trust. They come from engineering, they come from performance and motorsports, so we know that the engines are generally well designed and well sorted. Honda, even the small engines, you buy little small equipment for your yard. We know Honda knows how to build some of the most dependable vehicles. And both Acura as well as Honda, both in many cases share some of the same platforms, same engines, 3.5 liter V6, same thing found in a vehicle like this. Very, very durable in the Honda Pilot. And whether you're buying something smaller like a Civic, it's very easy to maintain, it's cheap to own and operate, or you're buying an SUV, or maybe a CRV, possibly even an Accord, maybe even on the Acura side, TLXs. Any of the Acura and Honda products these days are those vehicles that I would no problem owning outside of warranty. As a matter of fact, I would drive this and own it for probably 15 to 20 years and I wouldn't even think twice. I would do its standard maintenance and servicing. Regarding some of the recalls that were bad, engine-related recalls are never a good thing. Just remember, those are one-offs and those recalls are already covered. NHTSA has already identified some of those, and if you've got a problem, that's likely going to be covered by some sort of a recall or bulletin. Other than that, the brand as a whole makes some of the most reliable vehicles you can possibly imagine. From Honda to the Honda Civics, like these vehicles here, you seriously can't go wrong. They're fun, they perform well, they're very fuel efficient. They have great detailing like this. They also give you some of the luxury appointments. They have some of the greatest styled vehicles right now. And honestly, a vehicle you can own for many, many years. Same thing with Acura, Honda, both very, very good models, and neither of which I'd have any problems owning outside of a warranty period. Now this one here is going to be a little controversial, but the Porsche 911. Now this will be very expensive to maintain, and there's no secret there. But the difference is with the 911, especially when you're coupe format or GT3 or GT3 RS, Carrera S, any of the popular 911 models are likely to command top dollar when you resell them. So you buy a vehicle like this, maybe own it 2, 3, 4 years. You know what? Chances are you're going to get the vast majority of your money back. The way prices are holding on the 911, it's one of those rare vehicles and exceptions to the rule where it will cost you some money to service and maintain these vehicles, and if something breaks, it is extraordinarily expensive. But you'll get most of your money back when you sell that car. They're absolutely one of the most popular car brands around, and to ignore the 911 as one of the best vehicles to own for a long time would be a big mistake, because the Porsche 911 is simply one of those vehicles that's very popular, well loved, and has been around a long time. Of course, with a 911 Carrera S like this is one of your sweet spots. You get into a vehicle that's, in this case, the late models are actually twin turbo. But the point is, it's an upscale. We're talking to the Carrera S. It's a more affordable version of the 911, and yet it still has most of the amenities that any 911 would have. They're great cars. They're definitely going to bring back a lot of your original investment, and it might cost you a little bit of money for maintenance servicing, but it's certainly one that you have to consider if you want to keep it well outside of the warranty period. It will cost you some money, but you'll likely get it back. This one's going to be a controversial one, but believe it or not, you know what? Infiniti have actually made some good vehicles. So have Nissan. The problem is there's mixed reviews. And I've always said this, you know, overall a brand you probably want to stay away from because there's probably more vehicles that you want to avoid than that you actually want to buy. But there are some great vehicles, and I just want to put this out there that the certain models that you have to look for that are certainly owning outside of warranty and certainly owning for a long period of time are vehicles like this. Here we have the Infiniti. It's a glorious Q50S. You have this vehicle, you have a couple of different formats, a 300 horsepower and a 400 horsepower version, of course, with a 3-liter twin turbo V6, produces decent power, great performance, comes teed up with a 7-speed automatic torque converter transmission. That's right, Nissan and Infiniti, both as a whole, I'm going to lump into this group if 2 conditions are met. One, it's a torque converter and it does not have the CVT transmission. And 2, it's an engine that does not include the variable compression technology. This engine does not. Neither does the QX80 or many of those other vehicles, especially the older generational vehicles. You're going to have to do some research depending on the vehicle you want to buy, whether it's a Nissan or Infiniti. But any vehicles that do not have the continuously variable transmission by Jatco or a variable compression engine are definitely vehicles that are going to last a long period of time. Some of their older V6s, some of their newer V6s, even some of their 4-cylinder engines are actually pretty stout. V8s, you betcha, on the previous generation QX80 are going to be engines that are going to last a long period of time. That being said, avoid the vehicles with aforementioned CVTs and of course VCMs. We're seeing there's a big recall right now for some of these variable compression motors that are going to lead to a whole world of hurt. The Turbo 3s and the Turbo 4s, definitely want to avoid them like the plague. But these vehicles here, I'd have no problems owning outside of warranty, and I believe they truly do have some of the older technology that makes them actually fairly durable. The next one I should have mentioned already with Toyota, because Lexus is essentially the luxury version of Toyota, but I feel like they need a little bit more conversation, so I thought they'd throw them into their own little conversation. I thought they'd throw them into their own unique list, but we're talking about the Lexus brand, which is the upscale Toyota. You get F Sport, LC500 mirrors, and of course all kinds of glass on top. And a lot of these vehicles simply are made to last for a long period of time. There's only one Lexus that I can think of right now that I would not recommend, actually goes strongly on my not recommended list, and that's the LX 600, because it carries that new problematic twin turbo V6. Otherwise, every single Lexus is a very, very reliable vehicle. The older RX 350 has that 3.5-liter V6, and many of these old Lexuses have a port and direct fuel injection, meaning that you don't get any of that intake problems with carbon fouling. They're just durable. You also have the NX300H. They carry some of the most reliable hybrid systems. And of course the NX350, this one's an all-wheel drive, a brand new generation. This one does have its featured brand new, newly designed 2.4 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder under the hood. Now this engine is very similar to what you're finding in the new Toyota 4Runner. It's also the same engine that you're finding in the new Tacoma. And you're finding that engine, that 2.4, in a lot of different vehicles. Now, if you get the new NX in, for example, the 350H, then you get a naturally aspirated 2.5 liter 4-cylinder coupled up to a hybrid drive. So they have a variety of different engines, but one thing's consistent: reliability. And Lexus have built reliable vehicles, cars, trucks, cars and SUVs for many, many years. As a matter of fact, they came out of the woodwork way back many moons ago when they knew that they had to provide something to compete with the German manufacturers like Mercedes. And at that time, other manufacturers like Acura came out of the woodwork too to try to give challenge. But Lexus has always stood out, one of the most reliable brands that you can possibly imagine. And as a result, I would have no problems keeping one of these vehicles for as long as I decide to keep it, or probably way before the point where I just get bored of it. Because likely all you're going to be doing with most of these vehicles, oil services, brake jobs, maybe the odd water pump underneath there, and tires, tires, tires. You're going to see every 50, 80,000 kilometers, 30, 40, 50,000 miles, you're going to be doing tires, tires, tires. That's about it. Tires and brakes and maintenance. These vehicles, they do break like anything. Any car will break, but when they do, parts are a little bit less money, particularly on the Toyota products, but a lot of the Lexus products too. And generally they just last. They hold up a lot better than some of its competition. Another brand I'd have zero issues in owning outside of warranty, and I probably wouldn't even waste my money on any extended warranty, would be Mazda. Now here we have a little fun toy. CMX-5, or formerly known as the Miata Skyactiv G. Look at this greatness. You have a little rag top. The only issue that they really hear about, or the odd issue with water leaks in vehicles like this, and this is one of the most fun, enjoyable sports car experiences you can possibly get. But it's more than that, because Mazda is generally a fun brand. And Mazda makes some amazing vehicles with the 2.5 liter naturally aspirated or the 2.5 liter GT or turbo versions in some of their vehicles, like the CX-5, 50, as well as even the Mazda 3, offer a manual gearbox in some of their front wheel drive variants. And they just make a vehicle that's simple and reliable. Some of these other competitors are going to start looking at Mazda and take note. I'm a little surprised Mazda hasn't really, even though there's lots on the road, that they haven't gone like gangbusters, because Mazda is one of those brands that are very, very reliable, and I would put them one of the top pops here for vehicles for overall durability, reliability, and they will last hundreds of thousands of miles. I've spoken about that in other videos, about vehicles that will last the duration. Mazda as a brand is just one of those brands. So if you're thinking about buying something that's going to last a long time, you're not worried about throwing the extra warranty in, and you're not scared about owning it for 3 or 4 years past the warranty period, Mazda might have you covered. Now, truck brands are struggling these days. The Tundra is blowing those V6 engines. We're seeing Chevy and their 6.2s and GMs are blowing engines as well. All kinds of bearing problems. Even Ford, while they're doing fairly well relative to the rest of the heap, they've got some turbo problems as well. They've also got some intake valves on some of the 2.7s and 3 liters, and the cam phasers. Overall, Ford's doing fairly well, and they're probably going to last a significant amount of time. But for vehicles, I probably wouldn't have too much worry about owning outside of warranty. I certainly wouldn't get any extended warranty on our vehicles like Ram, which is formerly known as Dodge Ram, because I currently own one, not just like this, but I have what some of their 4.7 liter V8 under the hood. This one's a 6.4, let's get the 5.7 liter as well. And these engines generally, while not perfect, there have been issues, many issues, with oiling to the top end of the engine. Of course, with too much idle time, it doesn't get enough of the oil to the top and lubricate the heads. And then, of course, naturally, you're winding up with what they call a Hemi tick. You get a little premature wear. Turn these cars on, let it idle down and drive away, and you're good. A lot of these vehicles with good maintenance can last hundreds of thousands of miles. You've got the latest generation also has a ZF derivative of 8-speed automatic transmission. They're quite durable. Of course, you get 3500, 2500, and the 1500, which I basically own. They're reliable. I would say in today's market of trucks, these are some of the most reliable trucks. Now, they're not indestructible and they're certainly not perfect. They will be some problems. And the issues with some of these Rams is more on the electrics, because with the Stellantis product and some of the electrical problems that you'll find, that will be an issue. But that doesn't keep the vehicle in generally speaking, from moving down the road. And most Rams these days simply just keep on keeping on and keep on trucking, as they say. So from a truck's perspective, this is one of those few truck brands that today I would have little concern about owning for hundreds of thousands of miles, and certainly I would have no issue in owning outside of warranty. I truly believe this is one of the few trucks today that will actually go the distance, in my own personal opinion. And with all of that said, be sure to check out right there the video of some of the biggest jokes. I can't believe people are still buying those vehicles. Hope to see each and every one in the next one, everybody. See you real soon. Bye-bye.